Hey y'all, this is Moni.
And this is Kat.
Hey Kat. And this is the Fake Ass Book Club. Wait, can we both say it or no?
All right, guys, welcome back to the Fake Ass Book Club. This is your girl, Moni.
And this is Kat.
Hey, Kat.
Hey, Moni.
You look cute.
You look cute.
Thank you. I like our set.
I do like our set. I like our whole vibe today.
I do too.
It's giving like sparkly margaritas in little iridescent cups.
It is.
And I'm glad you joined us.
I
Everyone who's
know.
here, thank you for coming back. There's a
Definitely.
book.
There is a book.
We read a book.
We read a book, you guys.
Well, we
it's-
listened to a book
Let
for
me-
everyone who doesn't believe listening is reading.
Dion Craig. Yeah, so we listened to a book this week, you guys, and in honor of, Women's History Month, because this will be coming out on the first Wednesday of March, we wanted to, highlight a female author. And so this author is these authors actually, let me be respectful, are two ladies that we have highlighted before. Episode 4, we did Who Knew Racism Could Be Funny? And Amber Ruffin and her sister, Lacy Lamar, blessed us with a hilariously racist book somehow, and we really enjoyed it. So I'm super excited. I'm so excited to revisit these authors and talk about their new book, which is let me get the official stuff here, guys.
I know I've been messing up the title.
Me too.
Quite a bit.
Okay, the world record book of racist stories by Amber Ruffin and Lacy Lamar. This is awesome. So you guys, let me give you your little synopsis. Let's see. So recounting the wildest tales of racism from their parents, their siblings, and Amber's nieces and nephews, this intergenerational look at a ludicrous but all too believable everyday racism experiences across age, gender, and appearance will have you gasping with shock and laughter in turn, validating for anyone who has firsthand experience and revealing for anyone who has not. So that's what we're doing, guys. We're going to talk about these hilariously racist stories. Before we do that, you guys, hands over your hearts. Okay. We want to dedicate this episode, like we always do, to our patrons first. You guys are the real MVPs. Thank you for supporting Black women who are just trying to be creative and have a space to have safe conversations. So thank you for that. Thank you for anybody who's been listening from the beginning. Thank you to all of our new listeners, you guys. We really super appreciate you. Honestly, we just be talking to ourselves, which is cool too, but we love having you here. So thank you for that. It's Women's History Month, and just, to all of our ancestors, to all the women before me who made me who I am, and continue to influence, how I move in the world. So thank you, everyone. What about you?
Yes, and your dedication. My dedication this week is going out to George Clinton.
Let's
He
go. That's
is
left.
a Black all-star. He was on Drink Champs this past week, and I would have to say that was probably the best Black history lesson I've gotten all through Black History Month. It was especially Black art,
Okay.
which, we think about, I was at a talk at the Idle George not too long ago, and the speaker was saying how, like, you can basically trace all American music back to Black people. And I forgot how much he had done. So this is definitely going out to him. I encourage everybody to watch that. At some point, I want to read his book because I know he has some amazing stories, but it inspired me so much. So thank you for the funk.
Ooh, and nothing but funk. Oh, what is his book called? Do you know? Let me see.
We can ask our magic rectangles.
Let's do it. Brothers be yo, like George?
Brothers be yo. Brothers be yo.
Brothers
be yo. Brothers be
comma,
yo.
question mark.
Like George?
Like George?
I don't know. I'm going to have to hear him
Is that
say it.
him?
I don't even know.
I know, I'm scared, but I'm interested as well.
I hope he reads it. if
Wait,
it's
is
an
this the
audio.
right one? Let me make sure, because
know.
I'm scared now. Yeah, that's him.
Okay, that's it. So
That's
yeah, definitely want to check that out at some point.
Oh, it wasn't the whole thing. Okay. No, I'm like, that don't make no sense. Brothers be like, yo, George, ain't that funkin' hard? Wait, I can't read.
Ain't that funkin' kind of hard on you? A memoir.
Oh, yeah. Dang, the margarita hit quick.
It
Okay.
did.
I like it.
But
It
I
was
like the cover.
He looks
I love that because once again, the
Ooh.
fashion. I think about that period. Like, oh, sorry, dedication
tangents.
over.
Sorry, guys.
Did I end it?
We did just now. Y'all know what this is.
You know what it is. So,
the book.
the book.
Let's talk about the book. Let's talk about the authors, you guys. If you're not
What a
familiar
gift.
with Amber Ruffin, you guys, she's the host of the Amber Ruffin Show on NBC's streaming service Peacock, and she is a writer and cast member of NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers, which is delightful. And she also amazingly became the first Black woman to write for a late night talk show in American history. She's Black history.
We knew that.
I
We knew
did.
she
I
was
read.
Black history, but
Wait a minute. So it's like I forget stuff. You know, I'm like Dory. It's like
no, it's okay.
I'm
Like,
re-remembering
that's
this.
part
This
of
is messed
learning. Like
up.
repetition is a part of learning. So
I forgot.
and you're not her biographer.
I'm not. And
Don't you have some other people in your life you're keeping track of?
wow, I do. 2014. That's dope. Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
And she was a writer and sometimes performed HBO's Black Lady Sketch Show, which is a fucking vibe. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but you should.
We need to review that soon. Probably
We do. There's so much
We
stuff.
could review like one skit and talk about it for hours.
For hours. We could talk about those
fantastic.
headphones sitting right here on
We
this table.
could. Life
For
is so
hours
rich and
and
enjoyable.
hours with people you love and like. It is.
Yes, it's so amazing.
So should I talk about Lacey just really quick?
Sure,
So Lacey is Amber's big sister. And after years of working with her community, she landed in a professional position helping immigrants find work in a new community. First of all, I want to rededicate this episode right now to Lacy Lamar.
And
That
her
is-
infinite patience.
My God.
Her grace and poise in these situations
I wanna
is
be
quite
friends, Lacey.
it's Michelle Obama level. Like seriously, because that's one of the things I admire so much is because in these
I don't have
situations
poise.
I act up so
I don't
much.
have poise.
I do sometimes, but more often than not, it's a situation where it's Moni's like, maybe you should like,
Well,
let's
it's
come
mostly
over
just
here.
because I don't like being a spectacle. It's not even that I don't think that you're right. It just be like, yo, everyone's looking at us. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's wind it up.
Let's get
But
the
at a
fuck outta
certain
here.
point, it does build up, and that's why this book was
You
very
explain.
validating. Also, another thing about Amber Ruffin, she loves margaritas. She
Cheers
ends
to you,
all of her
Amber.
shows with a
Join our
margarita,
book club,
which I find
Amber.
is charming. She's also a natural hair icon and fashion icon.
So, first of all, we have to start from the beginning now, guys, because I
she's
love her
giving
so
me so
hard.
much joy. Me and my daughter, like we're such big fans. We would just watch and just fall out because
so cute.
we're
I
all
love
rowing
it.
the same boat.
I love it. But it also says that Lacey likes the challenge of creating safe spaces for the celebration of nerd / African American culture. And let's, like, on that note, this is why we're here, okay? So I feel like that's perfect springboard. So let's get into the book, friend.
Okay.
This book obviously was not physically read with our eyeballs scanning pages, okay? We put it in our earballs and we listened, all right? And we got the messages.
And actually, I would suggest for her books doing both mediums. I am gonna buy the physical copy of this book so I can see the pictures. It came with a PDF, but I don't feel like fooling with it. And
I
plus,
looked
I
at
want to
it
give
and it
her
was
all the
delightful.
money. And so, but just listening to it because there were songs. Because to me, did you notice there
I
was
love
a
it.
similar vibe of camaraderie between the authors and our own vibe?
Yes.
Okay,
I
because we make
do.
up songs too.
All the
And so
time.
there's so many made up songs in it. And so at a point, you read the book first. You generally finish before I do. And so there's a point where you called me laughing, where you were like, you are going to love this read. And I don't know when
I don't remember anymore.
I don't know if it was this part, but they were talking
Okay,
about
go
how
ahead.
they play a family volleyball game and they sing a song for the losers. And it's like, how does it feel? I'm going to just plug it in here.
How does it feel to lose? Doesn't it feel like you?
Wow, you're embodying loser vibes.
And there's nothing like
So cute.
this doesn't have to just be black. I just grew up in a black family, but niggas will write a hit song to roast you in the moment. Like it was like, that was amazing. And my feelings are hurt so hard.
But I love it though. At the same
Right,
time,
but that
I
was
recognize
art.
the artistry. I recognize the artistry here. This
You
is
just
great.
made a piece of art to like put me on a spit roast and turn me around. And
yeah.
I love it and hate you at the same time.
both at the same damn time. It's the
Yeah.
contrast for me. I don't know if that was the part because there were so
there
many.
was a lot of parts.
And you know, this book is what I love about Lacey and Amber is they are able to take these really just, terrible situations and make you laugh at them. It's almost like I would imagine if you were somebody who wasn't of color, who's not having these situations, you being a little bit uncomfortable laughing. Because you're like, yo, this is hilarious, but also really terrible.
Well, and also, too, how many people do you think don't even believe them?
Oh, a lot. Which is why they continue to put out books. They could probably put out a book every couple years. Just
Easily.
to continue talking
Well,
about
because
the
there were
stories.
new experiences after she wrote the book.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting. But even you've mentioned before about how a friend that you had was like, I wouldn't have never believed that if I hadn't seen it myself.
Shout out to you, friend. I know you're probably listening right now.
Yeah.
She got to witness some of the craziest shit happen, at our workplace, because I was one of, not that many. Definitely the only Black person in our department across, all modalities of what I do, which is a large scope, which is why I'm saying it like that. And yeah, I think sometimes it is you'd have to be standing next to somebody. And maybe I mentioned this on the previous episode, but even, I know people who consider themselves white to have been in situations with people of color, and they witness something, they're like, yo, so this actually happens. It's like, yes.
It's like, you should be outraged. It's like, I don't have the energy for it.
They're
but
more
thank
outraged
you.
than we are. And it's
Well,
yo, I gotta save my energy. This happens all the time. If I go to 10 every single time, I don't know how you live anymore. It's too much stress.
It would be too much stress just on your is it your endocrine system? Which one is the one that produces adrenaline?
Yes, that is.
Okay.
Ding.
I
Put a
did
ding for her, you guys. A little check.
I did it.
She got it. Science.
Yeah, but seriously, you can stress that hoe out.
You can, and your circulatory, just your heart. The stress hormones affects your heart. It affects your organs. This is where our shit
Irritable
shuts down.
irritable bowel syndrome, hypertension.
I'm surprised you didn't.
Diabetes.
I'm mad that IBS didn't take you straight to microbiome right now. Pew, 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 pew.
Thank you for bringing it up, though. But seriously, though, it has to stress it out. I try to give them good experiences. My microbiome. I think that's what they're here for.
Man, I'm just saying. I definitely was just. It feels good not to know that people are having racist experiences as well, because that sounds crazy.
It's sad in a way, but it's
sad,
also.
But we want to commiserate. It's
because
me too.
This is what I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Just racism as an abuse cycle. Because when you go to therapy, you end up learning about abuse cycles. And I was like, oh, this is just a large scale abuse cycle. Because part of it is gaslighting. And gaslighting isn't just saying stuff, someone saying something you don't like. That's not gaslighting. Gaslighting is having your reality questioned. So a part of it is, it's like, you're not experiencing racism. You made it up because you're fucking crazy and you're lazy. So that would be the gaslighting part of racism, when it's like, oh, I think I'm being discriminated against because I'm Black presenting. And people being like, no, that's not it. You probably just didn't do a good enough of a job.
And sometimes, I would venture to say that there probably are scenarios where the person who's experiencing racism, maybe you were underqualified and maybe you were or whatever. But it doesn't.
Let's go to the book, though,
away.
when she talks about white people who are horrible at their jobs and never get fired.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a woman who had a dog closet at her job. Do you think you could?
That's disgusting. First of all, I would never want that.
Okay. But I'm just saying,
that's nasty and I don't want it.
Okay.
Okay. So just so you know something about me, I don't like gross stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's
gross.
Why?
It's gross.
It's gross. So
but
no.
Could you imagine being gross at your job and keeping it?
No.
Okay.
But I
neither.
see people who are,
because the first story in the book is about a person we would consider white and them getting stopped by the police with an expired license and registration, and then just being given a ticket, and then later on getting a personal phone call from that police officer saying, hey, you were just trying to get a book bag back to a kid, which was a lie. And I'm just going to rip up the ticket. If you rip it up, I'll rip mine up. Goodbye. And because I remember having these stories told to me, I remember being in school one time and having a gentleman who would be considered white talk to me about getting pulled over by the police with no registration. He hadn't got the car registered yet. The car smelled like weed because he was a weed dealer, and he was just let off with a warning. And to me, he didn't understand why I was so like gobsmacked, because I was like, wait, what? Because I was like what in, because I would never even think of even doing that, like riding around with weed in a car that's not registered. But like, what do you think would have happened to either you or I in that situation if we were speeding in an unregistered car that smelled like weed?
Jail.
Yeah,
death,
jail. Possibly.
Beatings.
Possibly.
All the things bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I mean, honestly, it's hard for me to even think about it, because and especially when you think about like a masculine energy attached to an encounter like that. You know, I'm thinking about for like my son or my husband.
Oh, because she was talking about like being pulled over for no instance. I've heard you say this many times over the year that your husband's been stopped for looking suspicious.
There's air quotes.
We're just making stops in this area. Once again, that's not allowed. That's a violation of your, like, you can't just pulled over because we're doing stops in the area. That's known as just.
But it's also kind of like, because police are unchecked, and because it's, you know, the way that the policing system works is that it just is a massive abuse of power a lot of the time.
Abuse cycle.
And it's
a constant abuse cycle.
And it's a lot of it is geared toward, I mean, I think it's honestly anybody can get it. Don't think because you're white, the police want body slam your motherfucking ass. Like, that could happen as well.
It could.
It's just.
But you could get out of it by just being respectful sometimes.
You can or not. You can still get out of it by cussing out a police officer on the highway who pulled you over for rightfully speeding, rip up the ticket, spit in their face, and drive off, and they'd still be fine with that.
Tucker Max has some great stories about interactions with the police and just about how you can get away with
I'm not making this up. If I can find the YouTube videos for the ones that I'm thinking of in my mind right now, so when I listen to this, I'm gonna put them in the notes so y'all can enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, but this is pretty well documented.
It is
run of the mill. But yeah, there's a whole chapter just about because I've observed this in my life too, about people who are considered white who are just awful at their jobs, and keep them. Because a lot of this reminded me of The Office, weirdly enough, because there was one chapter too about white people like talking about stories of racism that never happened, like they pulled up in a gang-infested area or something, and like were bumping music, and they were like, "You're all right." I was like, that sounds like something Michael Scott would do, just making up a story about encountering some hostile youths who embraced him.
And then, so you can be like, "Oh my God, you're so brave."
Oh my God! And then the blacks like you. You must be an amazing person.
Oh my God.
No, it was weird, but it reminded me of that story because Michael would keep his job no matter what he did. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if he were a black man, there's no way you could get away. And he was like really racist. And that's the thing too. The whole arc of the show is just humanizing Michael. Because I would watch episodes of The Office, and my daughter would be like, "I hate Michael," but I was like, you gotta watch the show, because at the end of the day, he didn't mean any harm. He was just a clueless. Like at the end of the story arc, he's better. Like, but he starts off this clueless guy, and then towards the end, he's able to. It's a good story arc, but when he's in the middle, it's not great. But there's the episode where Dwight was the temporary manager and brought a gun to work, and it went off. And he kept his job. Like, do you think you could bring a firearm to work, accidentally discharge it, and keep your job?
My husband got fired from a job that they tried to say he was stealing from. Okay, so picture this, okay?
Sicily.
The Midwest, 2000s-ish, okay? He was parking his car in front of the building to walk in to clock in, which is not something he typically would do, right? But this was a practice that was common amongst everyone there. Sure. This was not like he didn't invent this thing. He wasn't the first person to come up with this.
It's like the woman who got wrote up for walking someone through a corridor.
It's like
that happens in the book as well, where someone gets wrote up for doing something everybody does.
And so he goes in, clocks in, parks his car, and walks into the building and continues his day. So when they addressed him, it was like, so were you stealing time? You know what I mean? Like, were you clocking in when you weren't really here? And it's like, actually, no. I didn't want to be late, so I clocked in, parked my car, and then came back in. If you roll the camera back, you'll see me. Okay, then it turned into, well, were you stealing somebody? Like, were you stealing stuff? Is that why you went back out to your car? Again, you have cameras. You know I wasn't stealing. What is the money they give you when you get fired from your job?
Unemployment.
Thank you. Couldn't think of it.
Unemployment insurance.
I haven't eaten anything. I'm in here.
I know, right?
I'm starting to feel
like needed something fatty. See now?
Maybe I need an orange.
Okay.
Anyway, Yeah, but it turned into this big thing that ended up with him getting fired. But he did get his unemployment because it was very clear that it was bogus.
Right.
And I feel like if you tell people, hey, I got fired because I was black, like they wouldn't believe you. But this was like in Plainfield, Indiana. Like, of course, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And of course, like their company too is also capitalism, which is a thing.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother thing.
Capitalism. Because that's what Martin Luther was
You're
about.
making too much money now. Like it's easier to kind of shoot the ones at the top down so you can bring in new ones and pay them less.
Well, that was like in the book where Lacey's father got fired, and then when he sued to get unemployment, the lawyer who helped him lost his job.
That was so
Wasn't that awful?
That was
it made me want to cry a little bit because it's like
was.
they just won't let us have anything. And it also reminded me a little bit too of why the concept of CP time exists. One of the reasons why is because back in the days during the colored section part of the bus, not only did you have to sit back there, a lot of times they wouldn't let you walk past the white people who were sitting in the front. You would have to pay the bus driver and then go enter through the back and sit in the back. But what bus drivers would do sometimes is take your money and then pull off before you were able to get on the bus, taking your money and then also making you possibly late for whatever job you were trying to do. And this was one of the reasons why they were doing the bus boycott. It wasn't just because we were sitting in the back. It was also because economic abuse is also usually a part of an abuse cycle.
That's really messed up.
Yes, it is very messed up.
I don't like it.
I didn't like it either.
But it was funny.
They made it funny.
They did. It's so funny. But look, back to the humor. Haha. Like I was thinking too how when she was talking about the story, so like her and Lacey talk about all these stories that happened to them, and when they decided to kind of extend it out to their family and talk about these stories, I thought it was pretty funny how they were like, okay, wow, these are changing. These stories are a lot more intense. You know, it was like they were learning stuff that they had never really.
Yeah, because as parents, I don't come home and tell my kids about all the racist stuff I'm experiencing.
That's true. I don't either.
You know, you don't want to give them that. Like, they're having their own racist experiences. I don't need to compound mine.
Here you go.
But yeah, like that makes a lot of sense. And even talking to my grandmother and my mom occasionally when she'll open up about it, like, yeah, they had to deal with some real stuff.
Racist rock fights.
Now that I never had to experience.
Rock fights sounds like kids, of course. I mean, they were kids at the time. Like her dad was talking about there being like was it a construction site? In between the neighborhood or something like that. But it was just
rocks. I mean, there's always rocks
damn.
everywhere. It's what a lot of the world is made of.
Yeah. Okay. That's
There's a lot of raw materials. So there's it's natural human nature to look around and see what do I have to work with. It's like let's make some tools.
What can I throw at you?
Yeah.
A crab apple, a rock, whatever.
and let's break off into tribes and
do that.
Yeah, like that's very very natural.
Oh my God.
I was super impressed by her sister who became a reverend. What's her name?
Oh, I
Alice?
hated her
It started
stories
with
the
an A.
most. I hated her stories the most.
Was it Alice? Oh, I feel bad. Anyway, she sounds like an actual saint. I would have, once again, I pulled the eject seat a long time ago in church. So I was like, I'm not even going to pretend to enjoy this. But she was like, no, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to serve my community. And that's how she went about it. And those people, like, it was really, actually, one of the stories I'd heard before, the one she warned you about, like, stop the book. And then come back to this one. Mm-hmm. But I'd heard that one before because I didn't have time.
What is it? Tell them what it is.
Oh, about, she was being stalked in this small town she was pastoring in by this one guy who was like, it was when Obama was president. He was just really mad about having a black president, and he was like trying to run them off the road. He was stalking them. It was all this insane stuff that it was hard to believe. Like, if you haven't observed the visceral reaction to black people, it reminded me of when I was very, very young, learning about, racism in the country. And then I remember asking my mom, like, why do they hate us so much? And there's no...
How did she answer that?
I don't remember the answer. I don't know that there is an answer, but...
What do you tell your kids?
I think that for a lot of human beings, we want to personify evil for some reason. We want to personify everything. We anthropomorphize everything at some point.
And then say what that is for those in the back.
It's when you turn a concept into a person. Mm-hmm. So that's why we when you look at ancient peoples, there was a god for everything because they anthropomorphize the wheat. So there's the wheat god, and there's the corn god, and there's the wind god, and the rain god.
Or even just hieroglyphics.
Everything. Like, we like to have an image, and especially a human image, because we think we're the most important thing in the universe. And so it it seems like over time that personification of evil was turned into darkness, blackness, and if there's any ounce of that in a person, that's like a curse, hatred, vitriol needs to go that way. From what I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It's very illogical. Like, we're all just people, and these visual differences are very ephemeral.
We are visual creatures, and we are informed by what we see, but it's important. Like, I think sharing these stories are super important because, you know, there is a certain part of the population who, you know, you're not experiencing it like this. And I can totally understand, like, what you're saying about, like, let's go back to Michael Scott for a second. Cause,
okay.
you know, again, when we're taking in stories and we're seeing it from, like, a main character's perspective, we're more inclined to find understanding for them, which is why we're trying to tell our stories.
Right.
We want you to find some way to understand, like, hey, this is our point of view. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what's happening to us.
Because even though Michael Scott was this sort of racist, sexist,
he was terrible in a lot
but
of
I
ways.
still connected to his humanity a lot because he's insecure. He wants the respect and love of the people of his peers. Like, to me, that's something that, and he didn't want to cause any harm, even though that was never his intention. And I think intentions do matter.
They do matter. But the impact, the end result of regardless of what your intentions are, like, they have real consequences. And so, like, you can't be ignorant and unable to hear that, like, even though you're ignorant, here's how this is impacting us in a real way.
And how you're contributing.
And how you're contributing.
Yeah.
And how you have to be able to put a framework,
right,
if you will, around your ignorance. I don't be able to say that as many times.
I feel like, because I want to visually represent this. So this was something that I believe, was it Chris? Because there were more characters in this version.
Yeah, because it was a family thing.
Yeah, it was
like
more of a family project, which I think was great. I kind of wish I could do this with my own family. It's like, hey, do you want to tell me
why
how
didn't
your
I think
racist
about
stories?
this actually, though?
And there was, I don't know if it was her, I don't know if it was Lacey or Crystal. Was Crystal their oldest?
Crystal, I think, is the one you're talking about, who was the pastor.
No, Crystal's not the pastor. She's the oldest.
Okay, I was saying I thought that. I don't know.
The pastor starts with an A.
Okay.
But Crystal, I think she went up to her daughter's school. Or no, it was Lacey. I think it was Lacey's school. She went up to her daughter's school, and it was first grade, and the kids were giving the teacher, like, scalp massages.
Oh my God, I was disgusted.
And she came up there and saw that and was like, whether you realize it or not, you're grooming these children, that it's appropriate to touch adults for their pleasure.
Like, that was your prize, though, for doing good this week.
And her daughter was disappointed they weren't able to do it anymore.
And didn't realize her mom was the reason why.
Right.
I'm shutting this down.
And like I said, you don't realize how messed up that is until you get older.
It's like, why would that, what kind of a prize is that, though? I'm confused.
I mean, you think about, like, the hierarchy in school. Like, when you're younger, like, getting able to, like, I'm line leader. I'm the one. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's that bullshit.
I get to massage
I think that's the bullshit we're concerned with now that doesn't matter. Like, you know, like, there's, you know, when you're younger, like, you just want that status.
And you want the favor from your teacher. You want to feel like you're doing something for somebody who you love, and you're trying to get their favor, and you want them to like you.
It's natural to seek the approval of adults in your life when you're a child. That's really natural. Because one of the things I remember being in a predominantly white school, which was even like, I was gonna look this up. I'll see if I keep this in the episode. But, like, Heritage was the school I went to. Heritage is a code word for keeping things white. So, so I had mostly teachers who weren't openly hostile to me. A lot of times what happens in those environments, you're just ignored. So that's the other thing, but you do feel it because you see them feeding into other kids, and it's like, well, why am I getting ignored?
You're
like,
Blackie.
Right. Like, I didn't necessarily connect those things because there were white adults in my life who did give me attention. So I was like, I didn't even, as a young person, I had no way of identifying that as part of the issue as to why these particular adults just could not even make eye contact with me. Like, they just did not, like, they just knew. Because wouldn't one person just straight up tell Lacey when she showed up somewhere, like, you're not supposed to be here?
Yeah.
But she did correct it. She was like, excuse me, and then she was able, but that initial reaction.
You're not supposed to be here. It was the HOA. She showed up to her HOA. She was new in the neighborhood, and she recognized that, like, hey, if I'm not at the table, I'm on the menu. I gotta be here to make sure that they're not like overextending themselves toward the things that I'm doing directly and know and be abreast. And yeah, as soon as she was sitting there quietly as the only black woman with her big fancy afro, ma'am, you're not supposed to be here. And she was like, actually,
excuse me.
Are you here for the HO? Yes.
Yeah.
I actually live in your community.
This was something too. I'll try to find the clip. Neil Brennan had excellent advice for white people for dealing with black people.
Oh, really?
And it was a very good advice. He was like, just treat them like white people.
Damn.
And apparently, but there's like, what?
It's just like, and I don't know if there's this, it's like you're putting too much pressure on yourself. I feel like just take yourself off the hook and suppose that like I just breathe and live like a normal person.
You don't have to just engage.
You don't have to understand how my hair works. It's okay.
We don't have to do a list of all the black people you know.
Nope.
Or
it's okay.
The
like,
black
I'll
people
still
you
talk.
think I look like.
Oh my God.
We don't have to do any of that stuff. Just
it's too much.
And also too, if you can't improve the silence, it's best to remain quiet.
And honestly, that's just general advice.
Mm-hmm. That's for everybody.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not based on any. That's just like, yeah, it's
okay. Just to I'm
to
polite
be.
with polite smiles and head nods. Like when
Like
you
so.
encourage, it's like, yes. And then we can just keep it going there and be like, instead of just like, I have a half black granddaughter. It's like, that's great. Like, and now I have to go into calm you down mode. And I don't feel.
Why do I have to do the heavy lifting for you? Just stop being weird or don't say anything. Like I want you to, like you said, I mean, honestly, you can just hush. When all else fails, you can just hush.
And
don't stare.
In any kind of context, you don't have to. And I know we're extra. Like I know the braids probably feel like a lot.
And I mean, I will say though, because it's not like we don't look when stuff is a whole bunch, right?
Sure.
Like my husband and I just had a whole conversation about this last night about, but just, you know.
He's normal, everybody.
He, you know, I like those guys. But just kind of like, we were talking about like, you know, say like how you have cleavage a little bit right here.
I do not. This is decolletage. I don't have enough for cleavage.
But I'm just saying
Cleavage
though,
would look.
but you want them to look though. You know what I'm
Do
saying?
I?
So like if somebody says something inappropriate to you, then it's like, is that your fault?
Yeah, no, because
It's your fault. Why would you show up like this? And it's like our consensus was wear a burqa.
Honestly,
Cover your eyes, look
like
down.
I told my daughter today because she wanted to go check to see if a package had been delivered, and she was just in her sports bra
Like,
and
no,
like
ma'am.
pajama pants. I was like, you have to put on a shirt. Trust me, if it was up for me, we could walk around topless like we were supposed to in Africa, but we can't. We're
Not
here now,
African.
and if you go to the door in your sports bra, we might get stalked.
And that's my point. And I'm not saying
And that's
that's
not your fault.
That's what I'm saying.
You're just a beautiful young girl.
There's
You're
always
not doing
people
anything
taking
wrong.
it to the level, and I get his point of saying like, you know, it's
You gotta stay.
you have to be
vigilant.
aware that there's
Yeah.
creepy people out here, and so you
But
know
I
that
feel
people are
comfortable in
going
this because I wouldn't
to
go everywhere
appropriate.
like this. You're right.
Yeah.
Like there's certain places I wouldn't feel comfortable going like
You're
this
breathing
because
in
I'm
it.
like, you're showing a lot of your neck.
If
And
I just
it's
like pull your shirt down and grab your boob, it's like, yeah.
But not that, but like I do have someone in my life where like recently they were sexually assaulted. Like some drunk dude just came up and grabbed their ass, like just a complete stranger. And he was
Has that ever happened to you?
not complete strangers.
I
Like
have.
I've known them before.
No, I have.
I've
had
never
complete strangers.
I've never had a complete stranger grab my ass, but I've had plenty of ass grabbing. Sure.
I'm sure you have. It's pretty voluptuous from what Romel says. I try not to look at it.
But
Um,
it's hard not to. It's apparently
but
everywhere.
you know, I guess
But-
so. I'm taking it to that because
But that's sexual assault.
it's sexual assault, but also what it is that okay, so if you're somebody who's witnessing something before your eyes that whether it's appealing, appalling, I don't know, different from what you're normally seeing, like it's rude to stare. Like I feel like it is rude to stare. I
Yes.
think that like you have to compose yourself. Like it's a very childish impulse to just stare at
to
somebody.
be like, you just
unless you
look-
want that smoke. Like, are we fighting now? Like,
right?
what
Do
are
I
we
owe you
doing?
money?
Like now I'm feeling away because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to understand why you're carving out all this time from my face. Like I don't, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Is there a problem? Do we need to have a
Right.
discussion? So my thing is, it's like, yes, you see maybe a black person, you've never witnessed one. You're like, my goodness, that's different. So take it in, move your eyes about. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't make it so obvious and so uncomfortable, because it's not my job to, like, now I got to come over here and tell you, hey, like, you're staring is rude. Is there something going on? Like, it's not always my responsibility as the person who, you know, I'm allowed to exist in a space with boobs and black skin and whatever else without being assaulted and saying like, hey, that's kind of your fault. You shouldn't have showed up like this. Because to me, I feel like that seems like the same kind of mentality that maybe, you know, a person of non-color could say, well, I've never seen nobody like that before. That doesn't give you an excuse to be fucking rude.
No,
though.
this life
You don't
is
get to
filled
touch
with
me.
a
You don't get to stare.
diversity of visuals. And our lives are better when we interact politely.
It is. Just be polite.
And one of the parts that moved me the most was when she was speaking at a home for kids who were basically, what would you call it?
Abandoned.
Basically like young teenagers who were
Like a halfway house type thing.
Yeah. And of course, because she's worked in those places before and experienced a lot of racism as an adult. So she's like, I'm sure these children are experiencing racism at the hands of these adults. And one of the young ladies in the program that she was addressing was someone we would consider white. And she was like, I think if you guys stop talking about it, it'll stop happening. And this is advice that we get a lot. I get a lot as a woman. I get a lot as a black.
Shut
your beautiful mouth. If you stop talking about the crepes, because like I said, we can't even say the word. We have to say crepes because you can't even say the word. And so if you stop talking about that, if you stop talking about racism, it'll just go away. And then we can stop feeling weird every time someone gets abused.
That's the part. I can stop feeling weird because you're talking about it. Now I have to acknowledge it.
She said, turn the other cheek.
That's why
She's
that's
like,
an
that's
effective
why
tool.
she said, when stuff happens to me, I just shut down. It's like, baby, like I'm gonna be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
That's how
is
that
what
is.
I'm gonna do, because
Thank
this
you.
isn't okay. It's not okay for me. It wasn't okay when it happened to my mom. It wasn't okay when it happened to my grandma. It wasn't okay when it happened to my great grandmother. And it's not gonna be okay when it happens to my daughter and her future brood if she chooses to have children. Like I'm like, I think there was a scene from First Contact. I'm gonna bring up Star Trek. Captain Picard was like, at a certain point, you have to say, this is the line. Here. No
What?
further.
Oh no. Not with the accent.
Yes, I said it like a white man.
That was
Captain
beautiful.
Picard
That
said
was
it
beautiful.
perfect. Where it's like, no, this is the line. I respect myself.
Yo. I almost aspirated my own saliva. Excuse
I
me.
need a little more things.
Wet my whistle.
I need more things.
Okay, hold on. Let me get my life together,
Okay.
that didn't help.
Because for real, like, it's
Well, that reminds me, like you saying, like, okay, there's clear boundaries here, right? Like, we have to draw the line. My grandma always, oops, hold up, I'm hitting them. A little refreshment. in me,
luscious.
guys.
Thank you. This is
but-
for the ancestors.
Yeah, it is. They didn't get to do this.
They didn't. They didn't get to
This
say. They didn't even get
luxurious
to.
moment of life.
Seriously, just to talk shit. Like you couldn't talk
Never
shit.
Remember when you couldn't talk shit?
Remember in your.
And I love it so much.
Remember your
It means
DNA.
so much to me.
How you couldn't even
Couldn't even talk shit.
couldn't even.
y'all.
They had a word for it. It was called talking back. No back talk.
Ooh, oof.
No back talk. And
Well, listen, from the words of my great grandmother, you've pushed me up against the wall, but I be goddamned if you push me through it.
ooh, okay.
Because that's what you're not gonna do. Like,
guess
there's
what I
only
do?
so much backing up I can do before. You know what I'm saying? Like, and honestly, sharing these stories, hopefully we don't get to a point where now I gotta bust you in your eye, physically assault you, go to jail forever, an unreasonable amount of time, whatever. But it's
Oh.
just like, can you see me as a real person?
I'm sorry. This came
Is
up
that
yesterday
possible?
when we were recording at the illustrious We Are Libertarians podcast with Chris Spangle and Harry. It was
Shout
great.
out to you guys.
It'll be out soon, probably blah blah. We'll let you know.
Couple weeks.
Trust me.
Sure.
But it ties back to the chapter about white people who aren't punished as harshly as black people if they had done the same thing. And yesterday we were talking about John McEnroe.
We were, and I forgot who he was again.
That's okay. He was a tennis star in the 80s.
Oh, he was cussing people out.
Yes. He was famous for it. It was actually fun to watch, actually, quite honestly.
Oh, it's fun when it's him, but when it was Serena,
Exactly. When Serena did much less, like she could never. John
just verbalized my
was breaking.
disgust.
He was breaking tennis rackets on the court. He was going off. That's what I'm saying. It was like he was the bad boy of tennis.
Oh my God, this is
such
so
a
much
bad boy.
fun.
But he never had like tournaments stolen from him for that. So that's a good example of visually where you can see where, and it's not to. I don't want to denigrate John McEnroe. I'm a fan.
I don't know that man. I'm not his fan. But.
I'm a fan. He was very entertaining, very talented. My whole thing is like, I would just like the same leeway for Serena. Like, I'd like to see her act out. Like, one good time.
She gets to, like,
She doesn't really get to, though. That was still reined in. Even when she went off on that ref, that was still like, sir, honestly, I ain't never cheated in my life. And right now, you trying to say that I'm cheating right now is really messed up because I'm kind of the best who ever did it. And you're taking away from my glow. She didn't break. She didn't cuss. She didn't do anything. She just honestly said what she was saying. He was like, well, guess what? I'm giving old girl 2 points. But I mean, shout out to Naomi Osaka. She's awesome.
Naomi was awesome.
You know, I don't want to take anything away. I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody. Like I said, I'm just trying to have what everybody else
should
has.
not be threatening your reality either. Though.
I just
that's
want
problematic.
my
too.
Cool Ranch freedoms, just like everybody else.
That should be a T-shirt.
My Cool
Don't
Ranch
steal
freedoms.
That.
What?
Are they gonna steal it? Are they gonna steal it? Cool
I
Ranch
stole it
freedoms.
from someone else.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Let me to quote a great white man.
Thank you. Do it.
Good artists borrow, great artists steal.
Wow.
That was Pablo Picasso. Yeah.
Oh, him again.
Yeah, him again.
Oh.
But like, yes, Cool Ranch freedoms. I got that from Neil Brennan.
Oh, I love him.
I do. Him and Bianca on
They're
How Neil
adorable.
Feel. Yeah, he came up with Cool Ranch freedoms. But that sounds better than civil rights.
Yeah.
Civil rights sounds
Definitely.
like a bummer.
It is.
But Cool Ranch freedoms sound awesome.
A Cool Ranch
Yeah.
freedoms. Wow. So was there a favorite story from the book that you liked
probably.
the most or resonated the most? with
Okay,
you?
I wouldn't say this was my favorite
'Cause that
story,
feels
but
weird
I
to
like
say,
the
right?
fact that they included not just black racism, anti-black racism. There was also some anti-Asian racism thrown in, and because there was some story where she was working somewhere, and one of her program directors was talking about how the Asian mind can't comprehend some things. Because there was an Asian coworker there who wasn't understanding something, he wasn't explaining very well. And he decided to say, after making series of rice and I'm sure all kind, the stereotypes. We all know the greatest hits. After a series of that over, time, and then also eventually one day when she was like, no, you're not explaining this well. And Lacey was like, yeah, I can confirm he wasn't explaining it well. He's like, well, the Asian mind, it can't really accept
Don't you
these
love that? Like when you're amongst
concepts.
your people and they then start to, whether it's other black people or just in a so this particular population isn't represented in the conversation, and then they take that opportunity to disparage them. I stopped
They
that.
went-
I
Oh,
actually
hands
stopped
down.
that. I stopped that. I'm like, yeah, we don't
Because they
need
try to do it a lot with
I'm not doing
Mexicans,
that.
and I'm like, I'm not doing it. I
Especially,
fucking
I
love
feel
Mexicans.
like I don't understand what benefit I have for sitting around acting like I hate these people.
No.
I love the
Whatever
food,
group.
first of all. We're drinking margaritas right the fuck
Right
now.
Oh, what about that woman who was weeping because the cheese said Mexican? They were having a taco
Weeping.
night.
It's like, I just don't want it.
And then put it all over her thing. And keep in mind too, when it says Mexican cheese on the little bag, this is great value. Like it's still made like.
It's made by
Trust me. No Mexican people are getting rich off that. Okay, so relax.
supporting
when
them
you buy
still,
a bag
it's
of
fine.
Coke, maybe.
Oh,
Oh.
I don't do Coke. But shout out
That
to
was
y'all.
funny later too, because she brought that up one of her dad's stories about how this one dude kept trying to fight him, and like he kept, or was that? There were so many stories. It's hard to keep straight. There was somebody they kept whooping, some racist person's ass they kept whooping, and he could take it because he'd do a bump of Coke.
Oh yeah,
and
that
say a
wasn't
bunch
the guy
of
he worked
racist
with,
shit.
but yeah, he would forget though.
He would,
And he wouldn't even realize it. And then he'd
Yeah,
get high
cocaine's a hell of a
again.
drug.
Oh my God, there were so many. There were
yeah.
so many.
What was your favorite story?
I think the story that resonated with to me was, and this is the impact that like I think things have in a very real and material, financial way, is that when Lacey, and this was like while she was writing this book, which was recently, okay? Went to buy this car, got the pricing and was like, hey, if I offer you cash for this car right now today, okay, if I make it rain on these hoes right now, how much can I get the car for? Oh,
We can't. We couldn't possibly.
are you sure?
The
Well,
price is fixed,
$1,000,
ma'am.
$1,000. No, that was after the fact. Yeah, no, it was fixed. See, I told
At that point, yeah.
So it was fixed, whatever. So she has a friend who happens to be white.
Jim. Shout out to
Jim.
Jim
hey,
the ally.
Jim the ally. Hey, I had this experience at this car dealership. Here's a car I'm looking up there. Can you like roll up there and just like make the same offer I did, see what they say? He goes up there, makes the same offer. They offer him $4,000 off this car.
USD.
I thought y'all said y'all ain't do that. So of course, bling, 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 let me call you up. Hey, they offered me $4,000 off. While he's still there, she calls up there to say, hey, I just sent my white friend up here to make an offer on this car and you're offering him $4,000 off. Oh, well, we can give you $1,000 off.
1,800.
Less than $4,000 off.
Yes.
It wasn't the same 4,000.
For real.
I'm just like, so that's
they
the
were
real
so
impact.
comfortable overcharging her that, and it happens still quite a bit, all the time, every day. I'm going through it.
If I sold my house, understand, please, my white friends, if I call you, if I call upon you, like, hey, I'm taking all my pictures down. Can you be here when they come to appraise my property?
Because you know who
I'm
does
gonna
that
get more.
regularly? Chris Rock. He
Really?
does all of his real estate stuff. He has a white person manage all. Like, so if he wants to, let's say, rent a house in the Hamptons for the summer, he sends his assistant to handle it, who's white, so
Why
that
wouldn't
he
you?
doesn't get overcharged.
I don't want to pay
Right.
the black tax on this, and that's a
Or
real
get
thing.
it, because a lot of times a lot of people experience this with Airbnb. They won't even rent to you.
Yeah, that part.
That happens quite a bit. We've yeah, it's disappointing. It slowly kills
But
you
it's
inside.
funny because they did a really great job. Like, again, I think the audiobook is a really great way to go. You hear their voices, you hear the inflection. There are a lot of really serious stories in here too, because again, like they're sharing some of their parents' experiences and also just, other family members. But again, they do an awesome job of just sort of, tamping it down so that it's palatable. And, they get their point across. And the point is that, like, this stuff is really happening. We're really sad about it. But at the end of the day, we still manage to be happy. You can't steal our joy away. You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. I'm telling everybody. This for you, Ro. Everybody. I'm telling everybody.
I mean, you can see it on Soul Food. Like, because
You're not gonna
let's talk
break my
about,
soul.
how about hair discrimination again? How about there was
talk
a
about it.
talk Lacey left that was specifically about hair touching, and someone was like, well, I know you just said that, but I have to.
After it was about microaggressions in the fucking workplace, okay? And
The first thing this person did after that speech didn't even leave the venue.
and then turns around and says, see, that wasn't so bad, was it? So now, like, okay, pause, listener. I want you
And
to
see, I can welcome your touch because you're my friend. But like, if there was just, I mean, how much unwanted touching
I'm
do you have to
mad
deal
now
with
thinking
your
about
life?
it.
Because I hate the fact that my daughter has to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Like the braids, because we do a lot of braids. Braids are great for education. Because if you see a black girl with braids and glasses on, that girl is trying to learn. Okay? Because I don't have time. Right?
to do my hair.
Right. Like, it's a real thing. And so I braid my daughter's hair because she's there to learn. Glasses, braids. She's had multiple adults caress her hair at school over and over again, strangers in public. And I don't want her to be groomed that this is okay. At the same time, I don't want to be, because part of the game too is to separate me from her. Family separation has been a big part of the game. So I have to play the game where it's like, I have to stay near you to protect you. Because even though she's on the game, she still doesn't really know. Like, I
Oh,
still
of
don't even
course.
know. I learn so much all the time about
Sure.
how deep the game is. But that's one of the worst. So if you can hear the sound of my voice, just generally every person on this planet, but it seems to be especially black people that you are drawn to, do not go up and start caressing their children or them. It's
just such
never
a
okay.
Weird impulse.
It
to
is.
me.
Also, too, because we learned during COVID, you guys aren't washing your hands. And fecal matter is a real thing.
Yo, I mean, that's the first thing I
Microbiome.
picture.
My microbiome is very balanced, and I don't want it thrown off.
You mean you don't want fecal matter, like particles?
I do not want a stranger's
sprinkled?
fecal matter in my hair.
Like, I'm weird about putting the toilet seat down, turning my back. Like, listen, I have a problem. And so, like,
It's
when
not
I
a
think
problem.
about,
Those are just good habits.
when I think about a
taking,
stranger touching
this
me.
is another thing. For everybody who complains about taking their shoes off going somewhere, I know you've never cleaned a floor. Like, so
Ain't
that's
that
what I
it?
know about you.
Ain't that it?
You who complain
You
about
don't work hard enough.
you.
Put on clean socks.
Shoes on.
Wear clean socks. Bring
You
some
will
with
be
you.
okay.
Take
Those
your
are
socks
good
off.
habits. You know what's on the ground? Goose poop.
Ugh, and a whole bunch of other stuff.
So
that you
much
don't
stuff.
want.
I don't want it in my house. My house is hard enough to
Especially
clean.
when you have little kids crawling around.
Kids are
touching
gross.
Kids
They
are the
put
worst.
everything in their mouth. They wipe. Ugh, I have enough problems. Just be okay. Just be cool with that.
I mean, I'm cool with it. I definitely feel like that's a PSA for people who.
For
I mean,
sure.
it just seems really weird to have to say that to grown-ups. Like, hey, don't touch people. Don't touch their kids. Don't.
Oh.
Like, you know.
I'm sorry. This was in my notes, and it makes me laugh every time I think about it because it reminds me of my daughter. But the fact, remember the story about Lacey when she called the police about that guy who was trying to break into her house?
You said that so fast, but yes.
Okay. So you guys read the book if you want to hear the whole story.
Oh, my
But
God.
in the course of that story, she grabs her knife, whose name is Stabatha.
That was good. There were so many. Listen,
Awesome.
not Stabatha.
That was amazing.
hilarious.
And it's just funny to me too because my daughter is the type who will sleep with a knife under her pillow.
Listen,
And I
so good for
can't
you.
discourage the energy. I kind of want
Like,
you
you
to,
might have
I
to
want
stay
her
with
to
somebody.
live. I want her to thrive. And it's like, you know what? Your impulses are kind of, like,
Go with them. Trust them.
look, you can
Feel
get
protected.
Stabatha if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel comfortable being able to protect yourself because there's only so
Mhm.
much you're going to be able to do that. I second that. You guys, I can't even tell you. We don't have even enough time
We don't.
to go into all of the
But
stories.
I can't recommend it enough.
But this book is for everyone. And I think that they even say this. Like, their books, they hope that people who, whether you're somebody who experiences these things, understand other people are experiencing these things as well. Also, if you've never experienced these things, you guys, please listen. Like, just listen. Like, it does happen. Honestly, it's not like we're making this up so that we can feel important or
feel
whatever.
like victims.
We're tired of being under the microscope. Like, at this point, like, again, I can't reiterate how we want to be left alone mostly. Just leave us the fuck alone, man. Like, just if you can do
or
any
no,
person
waving
a
is
kindness-
fine.
I'm just saying.
Waving is fine.
I'm not whatever. I'm just saying you can just leave us alone. Because now I have to look at you being weird, thinking like. I mean, I'm just saying like if you can't pull that off and be natural with it, if you have to think about waving, like, is this weird? It's like, then it is. So don't. Like, honestly, if you have to ask yourself, is this okay? Then it's probably not, and be okay with knowing that, like, okay, I'm leaving that right where
and
it
just
is.
picture me as a white woman if you can't, just as
Yeah.
an exercise, just as a thought experiment. If you
my
can't figure out how to
self.
treat me, like, you don't have to.
Same thing with men and women. I think if we just approach each other as real
As
life people
humans.
and as humans and stopped
Yeah.
thinking about our genitalia or our color first and just engage
I will
people.
treat you as more than an ATM if you treat me as more than a blowjob factory.
Blowjob Factory. Ooh, it's a fun place to be. Blowjob
It would
Factory.
be, probably.
Impromptu song.
Right,
You know,
but
for you guys.
it's the whole thing. It's like, yes, we exist outside of these artificial roles that society has carved out for us.
And that we're agreeing exists. So it takes us acknowledging that these things are put in place to separate us, to divide us, and to just be like, you know what? These are just people who probably want to get through their
because
day.
it's branding. That was the other thing I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Branding.
Brandon.
Because black is a brand, white is a brand. Like, it's been invented, and so you get fucked up when you step outside of your brand. So to me, that was because I've been watching South Park with my daughter, and that's been one of the recent episodes where it was this agency called Cum Hammer, and they were trying to listen, and they were trying to brand. I want to say Stan. It was just a whole, or Kyle. And it just was a reminder of, for one, how powerful branding is. Like, there's so many things that we don't even question because they're branded as safe, like whiteness. Like, I think about in my own life
true.
about how many things that have slide because it was white or whatever. So
That's true. I think Ro brought that up our last episode, like how we just we have really bad PR. Black people definitely do.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everything about us is being like sort of dissected from our subculture and reappropriated in other areas, and people make money off of it. But the one thing that like a lot of Black people can't figure out is how to make money off of just being who they are.
Yep.
And speaking their truth. And so, that's why, it's just important. It's just important to like put yourself in a space where like, hey, I might have to hear this uncomfortable story, but like understand that it's not to make you feel bad. Like if you could just for 1 second imagine decentering yourself from the conversation. That's honestly too.
Yeah, that's what's great about books.
Yeah,
that's
can step
honestly
back
what is
just take in
amazing
what's
about
happening.
books. You get to turn your little crazy ego off for a while and think, and then it gives you a chance to kind of reset and be like, ooh, who do I want to be in the world? Because I haven't always liked.
Who do I want to be?
Sometimes you have to be like, ooh, actually, that's the wrong position. Because I bring it up all the time, but
It's just good to stay open, man.
Yeah.
Like it's just good to be flexible. It's good to have space for other people's narratives and be able to approach them with the same sort of respect and interest that you expect and almost demand that people do when when you show up. So this book was so good. I think
It
we
was.
probably should take a break though, because
probably, if nothing
it's getting
else,
hot, man. And
It is
there's just so
warm.
many
We can
racist stories, they
we
just
can't
keep
tell
going.
them all.
We can't tell them all, but you do need to read the book. Everybody, this is for everybody. Honestly, oh my God, I can't even say required hardly.
Here, just calm down. Here, just take a deep breath. Everything's
Racism
okay.
is
It's
a
only
bummer.
3:22. You have so much time before you have to do another thing. Yeah, take your
Okay,
time.
we're taking a break. Bye. Welcome back, you guys, from the break. Oh my gosh. Racist stories make me thirsty and sad.
It's sad a little. But also, ultimately, knowing that we can be victorious. Because if it wasn't for the victories of our ancestors, we couldn't be here right now. We would.
It's true.
I love how Miss Pat put it. Like, if it was, I would be having sex with a white man against my will right now, probably.
It makes me want to cry.
Isn't that sad?
That is.
That's why
okay,
we're so
I'm
light right
stuttering.
now. All the crepes add up.
Okay, well, cheers to that, I guess, or not reverse cheers. I don't know. I love this book so hard, you guys. I think that if you haven't read this one or the first one, these are really great books that sort of, it's kind of what we hope to do when we're having conversations, at least in my
springboard.
mind. It's just a really good starting point for that.
It was only it was a 5-hour listen.
Not
Less
even,
than that.
not
Like, it was 4
even.
hours and 52 minutes.
Super easy. And not like racism talk should always be easy, because again, like no matter what it is, like even though some of these stories were I won't say lighter, but there was like a nice range, and all of them should make you uncomfortable because all of them are really messed up.
Yeah.
But you can't just skip over the shit that makes you feel uncomfortable. You know, it's like literally the stuff I'm teaching my child right now. It's like, yeah, we have to take ownership for the ways that we show up in the world. We have to take ownership for, our part in things, and we have to be able to speak about it in an honest way in order to move forward. And I think that's really kind of what we want, is just to be able to acknowledge something in its truth and kind of move on from that, because it's not like I feel like I don't want to be stuck here with this, but the less other people know about it, the more I'm stuck here, because
And
like,
I'm not going to be
forced to
and I'm not
remediate.
going to be the only one uncomfortable.
No, and I'm tired. Like, that's the thing. It can't just be my job.
It can't
Like,
just
it's
be
up
me.
to all of us to take some sort of interest in it, because ultimately it does shape the way that we move and how we can build. And with things so fractured right now, like the goal should be to try to understand. And so,
And it's not the worst it's ever been. I feel like that's a narrative that
it's
gets
not.
that
It's
gets
been this bad always.
Yeah,
and maybe
well,
worse.
It's been worse.
It's been
like I
worse.
said before, I would be forced to have sex with a white man against my will quite
stop
a bit.
saying that.
I know, because we're not supposed to be
It's
silenced.
like because I'm sexy.
No, like that
And
would
no,
be
I'm just-
worse than what I'm doing right now,
No,
which is
absolutely.
recording a podcast with my best friend.
Well,
like that,
getting
and being
raped
free to
is-
do that.
Excuse me, crepes are bad across the board, no matter like what color your
Yes.
junk is. It's like it's always a bad
Yes,
thing.
but you have to keep fighting it to keep it from happening.
Yes, and you do have to talk about it.
But it's less now.
So
So that's why we have to keep fighting. To me, it's worth it to have less bad.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. Like, there's this false narrative that, like, if we can't erase all the bad, we shouldn't even try to relate.
That's
erase
true. I don't
any
like
of it.
that story. That's a terrible story.
I don't like that either. It's like, no, less bad.
That's what stops
is
me a lot of the
better.
time. This is how I know this is terrible logic, because that's how I get in my own way a lot, when it's like, well, no, I need it to be like this before it can be anything. And it's like, but it's already something, and it can just be that. It's like there's still space for things to evolve and to get better. But there has to
Yes.
be like a
Like,
starting
this is
point.
so
And
much-
I'm learning that even just doing this.
This is so much
podcast.
better than our original episode where we talked about You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey.
You think so?
Yes, we're better podcasters because we've been doing it longer. We have visuals now because even though this episode is on YouTube, you can't see us recording it, but now you get to see us if you want to. And I think I'm going to move us into our Stranger Than Fiction segment.
Let's do it.
So, in the spirit of our book,
And
I'm
sharing
going
racist
to
stories.
give one of my racist stories. This is one of my earliest racist memories because when it was happening, I didn't even clock it as racism because I was 6.
You should put twinkly music behind it, like it's a story time.
Story time. So, I was 6 years old. I was going to a predominantly white institution for first grade, and they had this really cute program where we were pen pals with kids from another school. And so I had a pen pal. Do you think I would be an awesome pen pal?
Yeah.
I was a fantastic pen pal.
care
Do you
so
think you
hard.
were getting drawings? Yes, you were. Were you getting it was great. Like, and I loved my pen pal. I was so excited. So they organized an event where we got to meet our pen pals at the park. And so, of course, it sounds great. I don't know, Moni, can you guess what happened when I met my pen pal at the park?
So I'm gonna picture someone being confused when they lay their eyes upon you that there's no way you're their pen pal.
Could you picture someone physically running away from me and like avoiding me? Like, seriously, like just
No.
did not want to get the stench of blackness on them. At
A
6.
6-year-old?
Yes, this
Where were
would
they
have been
from?
1987.
Where were they from?
Even Midwest, where we're from. This was
Like, is there a town? Can we call them out? Can we?
Indianapolis.
Oh. I'm thinking like y'all are. Okay.
This was just where we're from. Like, it was just a different school. And so, of course,
think
my
you said
feelings were hurt. I just think I'm repulsive. It wasn't until, because I'm like, this isn't happening to anyone else. Everyone else is playing delightfully with their
There should
pen
be an
pal.
animation of
Like-
a very sad, big-eyed, doe-eyed cat.
I just hung
Crying
out until it
because a
was
white
time
person
to
ran
go.
away.
I didn't even cry because I was so
You
confused.
can cry now.
Maybe later. But like, I was just so confused. And so later on, I was able to kind of piece it together. Once I figured out I was at a racist institution. Because once again, the name for the school was Heritage. If you look it up, that is
Heritage.
there's
You
a
can say it
Heritage
like that.
Foundation. All of that stuff they don't say it. Once again, everything is about clandestine language so that you can keep it going. Because if you straight up say, like, we're trying to keep it white, we don't want any darkies up in here, you get pushback. So you
failed.
always use comfortable, like, euphemistic language about element and urban and
to the
things like that,
Mhm.
or uncivilized, like all kind of things that
Respectability.
point to the fact that you don't want things getting dark in here. So yeah, that was my Stranger Than Fiction. That was like super sad. Like, young Kat was really, really upset and sad in that moment. But even then, and I don't even blame her, because honestly,
Well, she was 6.
she was 6 and she didn't want the stench of nigger lover. Even back then, I think there was this is why I don't want to extinguish the N-word. I still want to use
You
it.
want everybody to look how I look when you just said that.
Mhm. Because we never say that, like nigger lover, but that is how
We
you
never
get,
say that. We just never say
we
that.
never say it anymore, but
Anymore.
that is how you get what we call white people to still engage with the system, is because they don't want to be ostracized as that.
Aw, and I get that because it's
I do
wildly
too.
uncomfortable.
It
and so yeah,
is.
it does. Your allies are willing to do that.
Yeah.
That's what
So
it takes.
and that's why too, so yeah, Stranger Than Fiction. But my other segment, which is this week's Nice White Person.
Ooh, what's the music for that? Let's make one up.
We need to come up with a sting for it. But for all the
who's
people,
nice.
like the abolitionists, like for all the people who are willing to sacrifice white supremacy Like that's huge. Because that is how they used to keep people from helping black people. It's like, oh, you're just a nigga lover. And it's like, and they said it like that too. There's no hard R's in the Southern dialect. So it was nigga lover.
This was so funny. That was a funny note on the book. That might have been what took me out.
What?
The Midwest way to say nigga.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it wasn't, she was like, it wasn't nigger. And it wasn't, and so trigger warning, because we're saying nigger.
I mean, if you didn't know by now.
So it was like the way, she was like, you know it was racist by the way, a nigra, I think is what she said. That's what it was. I'm so thankful that I just thought about that, because I cackled.
She was like, yeah, when she brought up she had a racist accent.
We're going to take a picture of your children and pass it around school and show it to all the other students so they don't get scared. Crystal. No one's favorite. But it should be all right. We've had Negro children here before. Okay, and that's where the accent comes in. For those of you reading this book, the lady was trying to say Negro, but for those of you listening to the audiobook, you know damn well what we're talking about. But see what I mean? It's that racist accent. It's not Southern, because that would be Negra. It's specifically Midwest racist. It's Negra. It's bad.
Cackled.
Yeah.
She was like, I don't like to, like I try not to stereotype, but she's like, no, I know that this lady, I could picture her because she said nigra. And she said that is so specifically Midwest racist. And I mean, I wanted to throw my computer down if I hadn't paid so much for it.
Yeah.
And just because it was hilarious to me. So,
this was another note too. This was such an aside, but it was amazing to me how many of the stories started with, I was minding my own business.
I was walking along.
Because you would think,
minding my business.
because whenever you describe abuse,
came along. Bam, scram, alakazam, out of the break, lifting racist shit.
No, so much because
Sorry.
that is sort of the nature of abuse. We even see it now with sexism when the first question, if you're sexually assaulted, what were you wearing? So during all this ass grabbing, did you have on a particular pair of leggings that made you look extra juicy? Like what did you do to invite the abuse?
Well,
so there's that sort of, oeuvre. And a lot of the when you talk about what's happened to you, and it's like, well, how were you contributing? Were you being extra negressy? They did use the word negress in the book, which was a big fave every time I hear negress. So
wow, they need to bring that back, because I mean that
and
is,
the fact that they mentioned Dillard's.
That was a throwback.
For everybody who knows what Dillard's is, the department store,
like us.
You're getting some racism at Dillard's.
You definitely are.
I don't think they exist anymore. Did they get bought out by Macy's? I think. I feel like Macy's and Lazarus got bought out, or Dillard's and Lazarus got bought out by Macy's.
I didn't have a Lazarus where I grew up.
Did you have a Dillard's?
Probably, I don't know.
I feel like Dillard's was Southern though, because I only could go to Dillard's when I was in the South. And we had a Lazarus here. We're old.
I remember that. We are. Moving on. Guys, this is a great book. If I had to rate it, I would give it 5 glowing negresses with golden crowns. Yeah.
I was going to give it 5 out of 5 afros.
Let's go.
Because like she said, when people would just straight up tell her hair was ugly. That looks like old. It's all frizzy.
Like, and we'll debate you about it. Bitch, this isn't for you. Scram. I also don't like your
Let's talk
chicken
about
noodle
how
soup
we had to
hair.
get rid of the afro hairstyle because you couldn't get a job with an afro.
Let's not.
My parents directly told me that.
I'll put the
I was
crown
like, what
act
happened
in
to the
here
afros?
so you guys can Google that. So
it's like, I was trying to keep a job.
This is why we get tight about appropriation and appropriating black hair, because people, whole nother subject, guys. It's so cute. Kardashians. Cheers to you guys. Anywho, just want to say, and honestly, shout out to anybody who appreciates black culture. I'm just saying, if you venture to have braids, know something about them before you get them. They're also not for you, because your scalp isn't set up for what you have to do to have them.
If you want to get some braids on vacation,
just
like
don't come back
like
with
Michael
them.
Scott.
Don't
Remember
come
Michael
back
Scott
with
had that
them.
little beads on his little shit when he came back from Jamaica.
I get it. That's what I'm saying. Like, we like when you're appreciating it, but like, don't act like you invented it. That's my thing. And don't be making money off of it and trying to pretend like you.
Or
you
if you make
you don't
money,
understand why people are upset about it.
No, get money, break bread. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, if you make money off of it, don't act like you're the only one who should be getting money off of this.
I think that it's tacky for you to do so.
Well,
I can't tell you what to do in a capitalistic society. You have to decide who you are as a person. So that's honestly your choice. I'm just saying,
pay Black women.
yes. So with that in mind, guys, if you guys want to join our Patreon, do that. We are definitely looking for sponsors always. If you are a small business who needs, Black people who want to buy your stuff, we have a pretty Black audience, I would say. We have some others sprinkled in there. Shout out to you guys for being allies and for being willing to listen to and be a part of uncomfortable conversations. Because that's what it takes. So, yeah, guys, check us out.
To all the brave nigga lovers.
Oh, no, that is so ignorant. Don't be ignorant.
That'd be ignorant. Why was I watching that episode of South Park yesterday?
Because you're ignorant. That's why. The word for today is ignorant. Can it pop up right?
But you know what helps to fight ignorance?
Read a book. Read a book. Books do.
Books.
They do.
Books
I'm always
life.
faced with my own ignorance. It's wildly uncomfortable.
I want to bury me with books. Like, I want books.
Can we make it rain books?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I can see this. I can't wait. Listen, this is very exciting. When I start being able to manipulate reality around like our visuals and stuff, you guys are going to be
so close.
You're not going to be ready for me. I'm going to be
You're
so annoying.
Close. You're so close.
So anyway, I think we should just wrap this up. Let's spin the wheel.
I think it's right.
All right, guys, spin it.
Listen, this is a classic, Feast of All Saints by Anne Rice. If you're uncomfortable with interracial relationships, this is not the book for you. But if you want to understand the economics, the social, sexual, psychopolitics of the foundations of America, it's very interesting. And if you like family drama.
Man.
So
it's a good
deep.
one.
It's very, very deep. It's class, it's sex, it's race, it's all of those things.
It's giving all the things.
And it's also Women's History Month.
It is. And Anne Rice is a woman.
Anne Rice is a prolific writer who formed a lot of my high school experience because high school was boring and I read a lot of her books when I was getting through it.
Too, as a white woman or a white presenting woman, like you didn't have to write about stories.
Sure didn't.
Of
She
people
wrote
of color.
about a lot of mulattoes.
You didn't. She did. And
she didn't have to focus their narratives, but they're fascinating. Like you were foolish if you try to block those out. Like if you try to do a narrative about America excluding Black people, it's incomplete and not as interesting and dynamic. Like the fact that we have to have Black history isn't the fact that we have a separate history. It's acknowledging the fact we've been left out of it.
I know. And honestly, Black history is ridiculous. It should just be regular old history.
It's
and we should be in
there's
there.
just the one. There's just what
just
happened.
The one thing. Thank you.
It's called the space-time continuum, and so we were in it. We were in the past and we will be in the future. And we're also here now.
Yes, we are. So I'm super excited. I feel like maybe we've announced this in the past. This is one of my faves, you guys. I love historical fiction.
We reference it a lot.
We do. And it's a fantastic
book. And it's also
book.
a movie of the week. It was not. It's okay, listen. I like it. It's one of those things that's not good, but I like. Like as a movie, it's not. As a film, it's lacking, especially in the dialect. But it's still worth getting the visuals. Like a lot of reading requires imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what's missing from people. So I feel like that movie gave you a visual reference for what was going on and why it was so messed up.
It was such a good book, you guys. I love this book so hard. I can't wait to share it with you.
And we love you so hard.
We do, you guys. Thank you for showing up for another week of this. Just real talk that we have, our fake ass book club here, you guys. I want you guys to continue to share your reviews for our show. Thank you so much for those of you who have done that. We love seeing that. So shout out to you guys if you've left a review for our podcast. That's a really great way for us to kind of like up our sort of.
Also, I know this is running long, but can I shout out Bellies and Bullshit for the show
Bellies
this weekend?
it was
so fun.
So
and it was also super fun seeing other podcasts there and seeing other creators in the city.
It's like our own little family of podcasters. You guys are awesome.
It was so fun and so good. Please keep doing that. So
thank you for giving me a reason to have something to do on a Friday night. I had so much fun. You guys were awesome. So
it was really good.
Yeah,
looking forward to the next one.
I know. We're gonna. I feel like we should do one at one point. You guys,
I'm scared.
I am too. It hasn't stopped us yet. Also, our 100th episode is getting very, very close. I want to say like first week of March. I mean, holler at us. Is there some content you guys want us to explore for that? We want to do something fun and festive.
Because I know you're a parent, I'm a parent. Like in schools, like the 100th day of school is a big thing. Like you're supposed to bring in 100 of some item.
Ooh.
And so I'm trying to think of 100 of something I can bring.
Maybe we should do books. That's a lot, but
That's heavy.
We can do a list.
We have time.
We can think
but I
want
want to do 100 of something.
Okay.
But yeah, I
You
love
guys,
give
us
everything
some
about this so
ideas.
much. So
Give us some ideas,
I want to
guys.
just keep going.
I do. Okay, so one last cheers. You guys, cheers to you.
And to you.
And to you. And to everyone. And join us next week, guys. It's another fun conversation. So, peace.
Before we go, we must give thanks to Urban Nerd for providing our music, and legal services were handled by Trezanae M. Atkins. If you like what you heard, please feel free to join us every Wednesday for another fake-ass book club. Cheers.
Thank you guys for listening. You can check us out at thefabpodcast.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you're listening right now. We want to hear from you. Come put it in our life. Thanks again. And until next time, peace, love, and the Fake Ass Book Club. We out.